AQA English Language Paper 2 Question 4 is a 16-mark question assessing AO3. Compare writers' ideas and perspectives, as well as how these are conveyed across two or more texts. As the assessment objective suggests, this question is a comparison question requiring you to compare how the writers of sources A and B convey their ideas and perspectives on a certain topic. Let's look at a typical question taken from my guide to English language, which is linked in the description. For this question, you need to refer to the whole of source A together with the whole of source B. Compare how the writers convey their different thoughts and feelings about their experiences at work. In your answer, you could compare their different thoughts and feelings, compare the methods they use to convey their thoughts and feelings, support your response with references to both texts. 16 marks. Now, as a 16-mark question, you should spend around 20 minutes on this one. There clearly won't be enough time to reread both sources in full, but you hopefully won't need to, as you'll already have read both sources in their entirety at the start of the exam, and then looked back at various parts in detail for questions 1, 2 and 3. In fact, you're probably going to have a good idea what those ideas and perspectives of the writers are by this point, and if anything, you might need a quick look back at the sources to confirm your thinking. There are really two distinct parts to this question. Firstly, students have to demonstrate an understanding of ideas and attitudes in both texts, comparing those ideas and attitudes, and secondly, students have to compare the methods used to show these attitudes. It's the second bullet point and what is meant by the term methods that many students seem to struggle with. Given that this question is not assessing AO2, the use of language and structure, the possible confusion is, well, which methods can I actually write about? And the good news is I've looked through the past mark schemes and you can write about pretty much anything. Imperative verbs, emotive language, frivolous tone, juxtaposition, irony, structural viewpoint, repetition, alliteration, humorous imagery, metaphor, simile, symbolism, structural opening, structural ending, narrative perspective, superlatives, hyperbole. So essentially what this question is saying is this: if that method is used to present the idea or perspective you're writing about, then you can analyse it in your answer. Let me point out one simple mistake to avoid. This question is explicitly about the ideas and attitudes of the writers. You need to be very careful to make sure you're analysing the ideas and attitudes of the writers and not those of other people presented in the text. For example, in source B, our writer is Andrew Hale, so you're looking at his thoughts and feelings about his experiences at work. Now, there are other people in the text, such as Ryan the boss, but you're not writing about Ryan's experiences, because Ryan isn't the writer. The question is always about the writer's viewpoints and perspectives, so make sure you're focused on the writer, and you can prepare for this by reading non-fiction texts which include more than one point of view, and trying to pick out the point of view the writer has presented and the methods they've used. So what are the writer's thoughts and feelings about their experiences at work in the sources? Well, the writer in source A does not enjoy her work, it sounds grueling and relentless, whereas the writer in source B is brimming with enthusiasm about his work in the call centre. But just identifying the viewpoint is not enough. One simple way to look at this question is like this. Step 1. What are the attitudes and ideas? Step 2. What methods are used to present those attitudes and ideas? Step 3. Analyse why those methods are used. Now, in the November 2023 exam report, it stated that students who didn't write about methods failed to get more than 6 out of 16 marks, so make sure you're analysing methods in this question. So, for example, in source A, there's repetition when Neil Chu starts by saying that she's hoped against hope that someone will take up the cause. There's a sense of desperation in the phrase hoped against hope. The repetition of hope within the phrase suggests there's nowhere else to turn. So the method there is repetition, and we can clearly link it to the writer's thoughts and feelings about their experiences at work. In source B, we could say that the quotation, "as it turned out I needn't have worried," shows how the writer was pleasantly surprised at how the job turned out. But is there a method in that quotation? I don't think so. And so, if we were to write about that quotation, we might end up writing a whole paragraph that doesn't address methods, but just becomes repetitive. This question, then, is all about methods. Another key point is that we don't want to oversimplify what the writer's viewpoints and perspectives are. This came up in the summer 2023 exam report, which I'm going to paraphrase. Basically, it's not enough to just write something like one writer is happy and the other is sad. That's too vague and generalised. No, we want to be as precise as possible, using words like perhaps pessimistic, doubting, mocking, disdainful, or fascinated, bewitched, spellbound, overwhelmed, blissful. Being precise here will allow for a clearer answer. So let's take a look at part of a sample answer, and you can see the full answer in my guide to English language. In Source A, the writer's thoughts about their experience working in the factory are ones of desperation and frustration. Niels Chu begins by saying that she has hoped against hope that someone will take up the cause and remedy the evils that they are suffering from. There is a sense of desperation in the phrase hoped against hope. The repetition of hope within this phrase suggests that there is nowhere else to turn. Additionally, the writer's choice of the words remedy and suffering imply that their poor working conditions are akin to an illness, and that intervention needs to be sought in order to cure them. Furthermore, the use of the abstract noun evils suggests that they are suffering from more than just poor working conditions. This word implies there is an immoral wickedness taking place at the hands of their employers. In contrast, the writer of Source B presents positive feelings towards their experience at work, describing how the wages were surprisingly good and how work was the perfect place to recharge your batteries. This shows that both the remuneration and the conditions were fantastic, and Hale's use of the metaphor to recharge your batteries implies it was the opposite of work. The language here suggests the call centre was a rejuvenating experience, a stark contrast to the factory work, which was without remission. Now, if you found this video useful, please do subscribe to the channel and give it a thumbs up.